Hello Scorpio, and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for January 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. As ever, I'm going to give you some outline strands of what you can expect this month, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in forensic detail all the key influences particularly relevant to your sign. Now, because your two rulers, Mars and Pluto, are really in action this month in a very profound way, let's start off with following their progress. So as you come into this new year, Mars is still in a retrograde in house 8, which is very much in keeping with the energy of your sign. It's where you're most invested, where you feel most passionate in a very deep, perhaps sensual way, perhaps more psychic way. Certainly your desires are very, very deeply channeled. But of course we're compromised through October and November by Neptune's square with Mars, the retrograde from the end of October, but that does end on the 12th. So really exciting. Mars comes out of retrograde on the 12th. Now also Mars is going to be forging an inspirational angle to the Sun in the last week of January. It's going to give you some real options, particularly around selecting your focus and your energies around where you live, but also your longer term financial picture. So keen to share that with you. But also Pluto, your modern ruler, has been in your sector of ideas, community, siblings, the third house, since 2008, for good or bad. Well, at the start of this year, it's in a conjunction with Venus. So Venus is the planet of allure, relating through its rulership of Libra, but much more sensual energy through its rulership of the sign of Taurus, and of course money. But the third house suggests that some fated conversations or connections are going to occur this year for you, not just in January. Really exciting. Now also, Pluto is going to align with the new moon in Aquarius on the 21st. So you've had a potentially tough time around home, family and emotion in the last couple of years. This new moon gives you an opportunity to get on the front foot. But as we start this year, Mercury is in a retrograde in your third house. So that's something I need to share with you very carefully too. So please stay with me as I reveal more. But if you would like to understand what this year will hold for you personally and ascending above this zodiac broadcast, if you give me 3 pieces of birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you your forecast for the year. If you order it at the end of year 2022, you get the rest of that year free. But also my special package of 30% off. You will get your life roadmap, your character analysis, which can help you to understand some repetitive patterns that may have come up in your situation, but it can also help you to seize opportunities with greater conviction. I will also, in my package, give you your 12 zodiac sign written forecast for each of the signs, which gives you something to go back to as we go through this new year. Please see the link below for more. Also, if you're new to my channel, thank you for joining me. Please click and tap on the bell notification symbol if you'd like to become a subscriber. For all ongoing subscribers, thank you so much for your support. So Scorpio, as you enter into this new year, as ever, the Sun is in house 3, which is lively, quick-witted, flexible. But Mercury, which through its rulership of the sign of Gemini, it kind of blights that quick wits in some ways because it's in retrograde. But it's important with Mercury retrograde to see the upside as well as be realistic about how it does have an impact on things like domestic appliances, technology, modes of transport, ticketing, travel. All these things we all collectively know can hit snags when Mercury is in a retrograde. Now it goes direct on the 18th of this month, which is something to really look forward to. And I should say Uranus, the planet which is exalted in your sign, that goes forwards on the 22nd. So Mars, Mercury and Uranus all go forwards this month. Chiron is not in retrograde as this month begins, but the North Node is. The North Node continuing in your sector of relating. But Mercury retrograde does give you a chance to perhaps check out some of your belief systems. And if you are finding it hard to communicate with certain people in your everyday world, whether it's siblings or whether it is people that you just encounter, then Mercury's asking you to practice it. And also with Venus aligning with your modern ruler of Pluto, perhaps people need to see into you a little bit more to understand your true motivations, because you can be quite guarded about revealing more personal elements of your nature. Of course, you can be quite blunt and to the point about making points and observations on other people's situations and the way they manifest their personalities, but you can keep your guard up a bit. So perhaps the lesson of this year as you make your way into 2023 is to be aware that how you communicate, how you express yourself, the ideas themselves and the politics behind your expression, like do you need to be right, for example, that would come from Pluto, but the charm of Venus is there as well. How are you going to use that for the rest of the year? Venus conjunct Pluto can be a good influence or a more negative one. We have a choice. But the Mercury retrograde suggests that communicating with clarity is going to be part of the story of this year. Now on the 3rd, Venus moves out of this 3rd house and into your 4th house. If you're wanting to take advantage of the January sales, it's almost certain that you're going to want to get some home furnishings with this change. Venus in the 4th house loves to redecorate. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you may think it's way too nippy to do that. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you may want to beautify your home, create some kind of outdoor space, which is really magnificent. But if you're up north, the chances are you're going to want to make inside cozier. And that could be through snaffling some bargains in those sales. But Jupiter begins this year, the planet of fortune, in the 6th house of health and physical energy, but also of work. But Venus and Jupiter link really well in week 1. So you get your first slice of fortune, because Venus is known as the lesser, Jupiter the greater benefics. These are the two traditional planets of good fortune, and they're communicating brilliantly well in week 1 of this new year. But it may be that the benefit you gain is going to be more practical or more home-based, or maybe someone's going to be very supportive within your family about something you're trying to do. So if you are redecorating, they'll come and give you a physical hand. That's lovely. The 6th, however, sees a full moon. A full moon in your sister water sign of Cancer, which the moon governs, so it's in dignity. But on the other side of the heavens, the sun is nestled very close to Mercury, which at this stage is still retreating. For you, these houses cross the 3rd and 9th solar axis, so your mode of communication. The full moon's asking you to stick with your principles, your higher ideals, but the sun and Mercury, especially in that retrograde, could see you rush something, be a bit too quick to make a comment, be reactive, perhaps even be a bit defensive. But do be aware that Uranus does feed into this full moon in actually a very constructive way. And Uranus has been asking you since 2018 for 5 months, since 2019 March the 9th full time. It's been asking you to review the way you relate with a greater honesty on how your relating impacts on the person you're relating to. But that's not necessarily easy to see. And the other thing that may have happened is Uranus may have shook up your relationship zone. Someone may have gone that you thought was a more permanent member of your life, or people have just been very changeable, or the conditions you've been dealing with have not been easy. And of course Uranus clashed with Saturn for 2 years until the end of December last year, on and off, in a way which meant that on one hand you felt quite limited and constrained around your emotional situation, and yet there are all these challenges coming around your relationships when perhaps you didn't feel at your best to deal with them. So I think Uranus being positively linked to the discussion that can come from this full moon is something to embrace. Now the Sun goes on to forge, or continue to forge, a great link with Uranus right through to the 9th, really from the 3rd to the 9th, to be honest. So that week of days is a great opportunity to have some very refreshing but also frank, very authentic conversations with people, and let them be authentic with you as well. But the 12th sees your traditional ruler Mars end that retrograde, which has gone on for near to 11 weeks. And if your desire side of your nature, whether it's around business, investments, entrepreneurship, we know we're all facing these big financial headwinds, and that total lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus was so incredibly powerful and challenging on the 8th of November, providing a backdrop energy for the first few months of this new year. So we've all had those financial issues to deal with, but for you it may also have been to do with where you've wanted to have closeness with someone. Maybe you really are drawn to someone very magnetically, but you felt they've not been available, or you felt quite fearful of making that next step. Not surprising with Saturn in your 4th house. So Mars going direct is something to really appreciate, but also Mercury going direct is something to appreciate too. If you've made it through the first 18 days of this new year with your computer not doing one of those constant updates, do you know when you turn them on and you go to work and then it's updating again, or your mobile phone no longer works because they've changed the operating system, so you can turn it on but then you can't manipulate it because the screen's frozen, or you've arranged to go and see a concert with a friend, turn up at the venue and they don't know anything about you, or you order something online. All these kind of snags can happen with Mercury retrograde, we all know that, but it does station direct on the 18th, sigh of relief, collective. But then the Sun moves into your 4th house, the sign of Aquarius, on the 20th. And of course, the Sun in the sign of the water bearer is very idealistic. But for you, this is where Saturn has been for the last few years, and where Venus moved on the 3rd. So the Sun moving here is asking you to think about protection, security. This can be physical or emotional. If you're someone through your need to be quite private, who doesn't really like talking about some of your fears and anxieties and insecurities, Saturn in the 4th house, the Sun brings more possibilities to you. It's asking you not to be quite so focused on what might be the downside, and see how actually opening up about how we feel can actually bring people in to support us more. You know, there's a spectrum of emotion and feeling with each sign, each influence, each planet. Nothing's one-dimensional. So I feel the new moon, which occurs on the 21st, also embraces your ruler, or your modern ruler, higher octave ruler of Pluto. Yes, it's still in Capricorn, so it's a dissociate conjunction, but it's 28:20, 28 degrees 20 minutes, very close to the Sun and the Moon, and crucially, all three link to Jupiter in that very practical but energizing 6th house. So something that may have caused you quite a lot of stress over the last few years, whether it's a home renovation, whether it's moving, an addition to the family, a loss in your family, perhaps a feeling of dislocation to other members of your extended family group, or more historical blood relatives. You've been very aware of how the glass can feel half empty with Saturn there, but this brings opportunities to see how it can overflow. So this is a lovely new moon, I feel. Jupiter and Pluto, when they forge a sextile, my word, that's one of the best aspects to have. If you have that natally, or a trine, or a conjunction, not many people are not successful with that particular influence. There is a bit of a snag in that Venus has reached the phase of the month where it's aligned with Saturn, so it's further along from the new moon, it's penetrated deeper into Aquarius. Saturn can actually be quite anchoring, it kind of clings things to it. So maybe you will get those home changes finally nailed down. The carpet's fitted, the new lampshades put up, the decorations all done. There's a huge sigh of relief that the transition is complete. That type of stuff is possible. Or it is possible that Venus conjunct Saturn could see a quite cold and not very pleasant conversation occur. Not necessarily from you. It may be that you're wanting to open up and develop a greater rapport with someone, but they don't let you in. I think Saturn on Venus can take away some of Venus's magic, but remember that Venus in Aquarius is quite a stubborn energy, because the determination of Aquarius to be idealistic means that Venus can be a bit more detached about its affections, and because Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, they can actually coexist. So you could actually have a really frank discussion and clear the air. It's entirely possible. So as ever, there's no one outcome in astrology. There just isn't. The knockers of astrology would seize on that to say, oh, well, you just make it up to suit the circumstances, don't you? Well, of course, they would say that, wouldn't they? But astrology is a very complex way of assisting people. So I can assist people enormously through a natal analysis or one-to-one, because I can give them so much more information than just working with the sun sign. Their midpoint, for example, sun and moon midpoint, Saturn and Pluto midpoint, Venus and Mars midpoint. All these things inform an enormous amount beyond the zodiac sign. So what I try to do with these videos is give you as much information as I can so you can see the variables and choose what suits you. It's not because I can't make my mind up or I'm trying to hedge my bets. It's just not as simple as that. Now, the 22nd does see Uranus go direct. It's been in retrograde since the end of August. So if your relationship situation has continued to be very erratic, changeable, Uranus, of course, has those qualities anyway, or those attributes. So I can't promise that it's going to be a panacea, but I think things can get a little bit more consistent. And then on the 27th, magic moment, Venus moves into Pisces, your sister sign, joining up with Neptune. But the key is that Venus is exalted in Pisces, so does a swirl, loves being there, really big smile, ka-ching. But for you, it's house 5, romance. But it also links to Jupiter again, but this time in a semi-sextile, not quite as potent as earlier in the month, because Venus is now in a very show-offy, demonstrative, affectionate, sociable part of your situation. So as much as the year starts with a lot of talk about how you think, how you communicate your ideas, the exchange of information with the full moon, then goes into this big portion of energy, very much to do with home, emotion, family, security. And then as the month comes to an end, Venus gives you a little bit of a view of what's coming with Pisces season. Venus into Pisces, absolutely delightful. Should say that Saturn and Neptune are in a semi-sextile all this month. Saturn still in your 4th house, of course. Neptune in your 5th house. It suggests that there is something to be gained by having the solidity of an air 4th house, because it gives you a bit more detachment in terms of how you view your home life. But Neptune suggests some magic, and of course Venus comes in to augment that magic too. But there's more, because going on from the new moon, the Sun continues to link brilliantly with Jupiter for a week. And then in the last week of the last 5 days of January, Mars, your ruler, forges that wonderful trine with the Sun. So I feel that if there is a property matter that you're working through, I know that the cost of borrowing has really risen, and that may have really in some way had a massive impact on some of your plans, my plans, everyone's plans. But if anyone can find a way to be ingenious and motivated and find opportunities to thrive it's going to be you as this month comes to a close, because Jupiter and Mars in such an enterprising angle with one another and the Sun gives you the chance to use your Martian energy more through the auspices of Aries, if you like, the initiation energies, the risk taken. You can be very solid in your life patterns until big changes come, and when they come, my word, do they come, and then you have colossal change. But I feel that you can embrace that more Aryan energy of Mars to get on the front foot, be more galvanized, and show people just how inspirational you can be. Your passion can really come to the fore, but perhaps around fairly practical subjects: business, property, marshalling your resources, squeezing the most from your asset to get the best deal for you as this month draws to a close. I'd like to wish you a very happy year 2023, Scorpio. Take care and goodbye.